Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Aquarius Rising Africa. And wow, I just want to say thank you so much to our new members. Um, Kaz, before you, thank you so much, as well as Monique Ish. I really, really appreciate you guys. I really, really, really do. And thank you for supporting this amazing, beautiful channel. Without you guys, we couldn't continue. And I definitely have another super duper interesting guest. The second time Taylor Northcutt is on as my guest. He's the, I want to call it face reading artist. I know you guys have fancy names for these things. For me, I think this type of art is an art. To be able to read someone's face and understand it on a deeper level, it's very creative and it is really amazing. So the last time Taylor was on, we spoke about the basics of, understanding the faces. And I really want to encourage you guys, if you haven't actually watched that show yet, maybe Morna, you can, if you wouldn't mind just posting the link of the last show we did with Taylor, where you can get the initial, there we go, thank you so much, appreciate that, where you can get the basics and the background and just the understanding of the science that really goes into this, because I think it is a science. And today, well, let me first bring Taylor on. Taylor, welcome back. How are you, Taylor? Nice to have you
Hello.
back.
I'm wonderful. It's great to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So interesting what you're doing. And that's why I said to you the last time, I love people like you on this planet because you make life so interesting. With the way the ability you have to see and understand this on a deeper level, for me, is quite phenomenal. It's not just like you're a psychic and you can read energy or whatever the case might be, right? There's really an art to understanding the physical makeup of someone's bone structure. And not just the bone structure, but I guess the expression that goes along with
hmm
it. I mean, you can have twins who can be identical and they can have a completely different experience on life. I mean, the expressions, right, on their
hmm
faces, the expression lines and everything will tell you a different story, I'm sure. But anyway, let me not assume any further. And I want to hand straight over to you because we're going to be looking at some famous faces today. And
hmm
we're going to be looking at, yes, Donald Trump, Elon Musk. Who else has not escaped our little beady eyeballs today? Wait.
Jeffrey Epstein is a
Epstein,
big
of
one.
course, and
Yeah.
Ghislaine Maxwell. So we're going to be looking at some interesting faces. But anyway, without any further ado, Tyler, over to you. And yes, how are you? Welcome back.
I'm very good. It's a beautiful day here, and I'm looking forward to getting to do this with you. We've got some good, interesting ones showing off, kind of what you talked about in terms of the soft tissue, how that can change the expressions, the lines and creases, especially, and also with some of these, especially, you're going to see a lot with the asymmetry, these sort of different sides of the face and what that reveals about the different sides of the personality.
Wow, that's very interesting. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about that. I mean, as a matter of interest, before we go, I mean, when you look at your face in the mirror, it's not always that easy, when you even in any kind of trade, I guess it's not as easy to see yourself in a certain way. I'm interested though, have you ever actually studied your face to see how your symmetry aligns with your inner being as a matter of interest?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've done lots of analyses on myself since I basically started this. Uh, right off the bat, one thing that I've always had is the big wide splayed ears, and as a kid, they were so big and out there you wouldn't believe it. Uh, that shows independence, and that correlates. I've always been a very independent person, even to the point of being contrarian. If something is popular or with the mainstream, I want to just revolt against it for its own sake. In terms of the main temperament, my sort of underlying energy, I am mostly choleric. I have a choleric, wiry sort of body type, big, high forehead, level chin. But something I noticed, and this is one of those cases where, I had noticed the effects, but I didn't know what was going on until I learned about physiognomy and studied myself. The jaw angle is I have a right angle to my jaw, 90-degree angle there. That's a sanguine jaw. So I have a mixed temperament. Choleric, which is mostly hardworking, enduring, long-term, focused on work. That's very much my energy on the most part. But the sanguine jawline means that in the long term, I get much less choleric, much more sanguine. So much less serious, work-focused, long-term, enduring, and much more casual, impulsive, impatient, kind of charming. I've had people point out to me, friends and roommates and stuff, when I first meet people, very almost mechanical, like very professional, steady, level. But then as I get comfortable and as I get to know them, a switch flips and and that's my sanguine side coming out, and I become just very open and jovial and jocular. Other big thing with me is these flat across eyebrows. This is a family trait. It indicates stubbornness, and that's very much there in my family. And you can see, and we'll talk a little bit about this to sort of out myself a bit, my eyebrows are a little asymmetrical. They're at kind of
Yeah, I can
odd
see.
levels. Now, this didn't used to be the case, but it's become so over time. And what's going on here is eyebrow height tells you about the length of time in decision making, where you see on my left side, which stands for who I am by nature, my inner self, and my private and personal life, it's higher set. So higher set eyebrows, you tend to see those on average more on women. Some men, oftentimes men of a more spiritual or artistic persuasion, that stands for being considerate and kind of cautious with decision making, wanting to take in all the facts before you make a final judgment. But then you see my right eyebrow, noticeably lower set. That's a more stereotypically masculine eyebrow, and that indicates that in my public life, in my sort of persona that I put on for work, in my public presentation with other people, I am much more quick, judgmental, decisive, which makes sense with the face reading thing, right? It's all about judging and discerning kind of on the fly. But then you get me in private with my wife or my friends, and I'm actually by nature pretty slow to choose. I'll really want to take everything in, but well, I'm not sure. I'm much more cautious in personal affairs.
Wow, that's quite incredible. I mean, it must be an advantage to be able to understand this as well. I'm just sitting thinking, if you interviewing for a job or something, I think it's also good for, let's say, if you're a potential employee, just on a more day-to-day basis to understand the person you'll be dealing with, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you had to, be working for this person, it's actually it's super duper interesting. Wow. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I've got a million questions that are popping up in my head in the meantime, but I'll keep them for another time, because maybe if you're ready or if you're willing now, we can do some of the faces. Who's do you want to do first?
I think it'd be good to start off. Probably let's start with Elon Musk. He's pretty simple, straightforward.
Okay. Let's bring Elon on. Hey, add to the stage, buddy.
There we are. All right. Elon Musk. This is a good picture for it. So first off, his main temperament. I didn't get a side profile here, but he is mostly choleric. You can tell high forehead, level chin, not super recessed, not super protruding, with his body type as well. Kind of, not super beefy or flabby or skinny, just moderately athletic, wiry. He's going to be very much an intense, long-term worker. And you see that with his stuff. He's running all these different businesses. He has a a great work ethic. That's how he got so rich in part. But he's also very kind of overbearing. You can see a very high forehead, very strong face, kind of a very blunt, dull sort of will. He doesn't have the sort of artistic receptivity or sensitivity that you would have in the someone with maybe a narrower face or more of a kind of sloping side profile there. As for his main archetype, much like someone like Donald Trump or even myself, he has a mostly rectangular Mars face shape. That means that he has the warrior archetype. So he's very active, generous, gregarious, and has an impulse to fight, very combative. He cannot stay out of public controversy. This is why the Elon Trump, the Trump Musk collab, that partnership was doomed to fail from the start. Just like people into celebrity stuff will remember Brad Jelena, right? Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. And what that is it's two Marses, two Mars faces. They get together and they burn hot, but they burn up fast. And so there's so much intense energy. Mars people feel they feel very strongly. I like to say they love and hate with equal intensity. So if you're on their good side, they're going to be super generous. They're going to want to shower you with gifts. They're going to think you're the best person ever. But if you get on their bad side, do something they dislike, or especially if they feel that you're disloyal to them, even though ironically Mars face people are kind of have problems with loyalty. They're kind of flighty, impatient, kind of want to move on to the next thing. Could be a problem in relationships. They are, if they feel that you're disloyal to them, then they will turn on you and they will hate you. So it is funny. Yeah, someone's pointing out Elon has a Mars face and he's all about Mars, all about getting to Mars. It is a fascinating little piece in that. I was thinking maybe I should have had you bring this up, but the head of, and maybe we'll do this at the end, Mark Driscoll, the pastor head of Mars Hill Church, who was a very aggressive person, also a Mars face mixed with some other stuff, but he had a Mars face as well, and it is interesting that they seem to subconsciously align with it. Elon wants to go to Mars. Mark Driscoll runs this church called Mars Hill. There seems to be this weird way in which, I don't know, the planets and the energies are there, and then you almost summon them. So, but yeah, in terms of his facial features, small inner face. So this means that he is detached, aloof, stress resistant. You see this a lot with people in very high places of power. Because they have to be detached and aloof from their circumstances in order to be able to succeed to that level. People who are very sensitive and receptive tend not to do that well. So,
Right.
I think the other thing with him is, his eyes, very small, beady, somewhat cynical, untrusting. So he's kind of out to see the worst in people. He very distrusting, and something you'll notice here. There's a clear asymmetry here. The left eye, which is for his private self, his personal life, it's a deeper set. I'd say even smaller than the right. Very small, deep set, thin upper eyelid. So he's very detached, reserved, calculating, withdrawn in his private life by nature. His right eye is more protruding a little bit bigger. So he projects to people as being more outgoing, outspoken, more kind of open and friendly in general, I think. Then his nose, moderate length, balance between thought and action. Eyebrows are thinning a little bit, could be a sign of energy loss. The mouth is interesting. It's very wide. So that means that he has very strong appetites. Mouth has to do with both communication and consumption. Words going out, food coming in. And so likewise, it tells us about those two things in face reading, that Elon Musk is very talkative, outgoing. Um, he wants to make new social connections. He wants to have his voice be heard. He's very interested in being a public figure. This plays well with the Mars thing. Someone with a small mouth is going to be more naturally reserved. And we're going to get on that with Trump, even though Trump is kind of a famous big figure. You'll notice he has a small mouth. And I suspect that Trump is by nature more introverted. Elon he has a really strong need for people to hear him and know about him, and he just wants that for its own sake. The last thing with that is that the corners of his mouth, you can see, are downturned. That shows pessimism. A lifetime of frowning will do that to you. And why is that? Well, you look at his forehead, you see those horizontal lines. People don't like these, especially the ladies. They want to Botox them off. In face reading, these are actually good things. We'll get more into this, but generally, for the most part, lines, creases, wrinkles in pretty much all schools of face reading, these are seen as very good things because they are marks of achievement and power and ability that have sort of been embedded into your face over a lifetime of use. So don't Botox them off if you can help them. Help it. It's a good thing.
I've always said that. I always say, the lines on your face, it's like the map to your soul.
Yes, very much so.
No Botox for me. Wonderful. Okay. Wow. Very interesting. I look at his eyes as well, and I had exactly the same thing. For me, it's the eyes. I see the eyes, and there's such a strong reserve protection. Only give you so much, and play that to whichever way he needs to. I guess that's probably part of what he's learned in the system, though, right? Isn't it? I mean, Jesus, they're so easily exploited. Wow.
Yeah.
Anyway, great. Now, I like what you said, a lifetime of frowning. Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to do the Driscoll one now? That one?
Yeah, we'll go ahead. I just got that pulled up because I was thinking about this. My priest was talking about this last night. We were doing a lesson on church structure. So Mark Driscoll, for those who don't know, he founded, along with some other people, this church called Mars Hill Church in Seattle in 1996. So this is an independent evangelical church. This is one of those very low church types where he said he felt called, and so he just did it and made a church, and there was no oversight. It was basically just him. Mars Hill Church collapsed in 2015, and he's a very charismatic man, but he was very aggressive, I should say, and there was a lot of abuse scandals and allegations, not sexual abuse or anything, but emotional abuse, just general bullying. So with him, what's really interesting here is the asymmetry. And you can kind of, sometimes I do a trick with my thumb, but this one, I think you can just see it here. So let's look at the two sides of the face. Let's start with the right side, actually. So with his public persona, right side, we see a very clear rectangle shape. It looks like Elon's face, Mars face, fitting for Mars Hill Church. You see the eye kind of goes in like a cat, higher on the outside, lower on the inner corner. That's a positive canthal tilt. That means that he is rebellious, assertive, confident, puts his own interests over those of others. And you see there's a little smirk, a little upturned thing. So he projects in public as being very optimistic, driven. And so this very much fits with his public image, right? This very Martian person. And so you might assume, okay, well, that's him. But look at his left side, and it really couldn't be more different, honestly. First off, the face shape is so different. Right side is a clear rectangle. This is a clear circle. This is a moon face shape. So it's similar in some regards in that they both have a strong passion, but in many ways it's the dynamic opposite to the Mars. Mars is, I do couples packages sometimes, and I've gotten some where the man is a Mars, the woman is a moon. That's me and my wife. She has a moon face, and it's very much a yin and yang sort of thing. So he has yin and yang going on at the same time in himself. So there's a very dynamic combination there. Moon phase people are very moody. They're driven by these sort of rhythmic moods, even in their physical body, like how they feel, if they're ready to go for the day or if they're grumpy or not. It goes in cycles, like the phases of the moon. They are naturally nurturing. They make good mothers, good fathers. Even if as a father, they're a little more motherly. You can also see his left eye, bit droopier, bit more of a negative canthal tilt. And you can kind of see it's subtle, but the eyelid seems to droop a bit more over, or maybe the flesh above the eyelid seems to droop a bit more over on the left side. That's something you commonly see in people with childhood trauma. Or some sort of inner secret. He seems like he might have had a rough upbringing, but it's pretty general. You see this in a lot of celebrities because most people who are driven to be famous don't have good upbringings. There's something to kind of push them towards that.
Right.
Last couple things. Short nose. He's got that sort of bulldog nose. So this means he's action oriented. Wants to do things rather than just sit and think and talk about them. Someone like you have a very rather long nose, which is again, plastic surgery industry. They like to say it's a bad thing. It's actually a very good thing in face reading. It means that it stands for thoughtfulness, patience, and being able to sit and think and talk about the issues versus needing to just go out and do. His mouth, with the asymmetry, the left corner, you can see it's drooping down noticeably.
Yes. Wow.
It's
the whole mouth.
Yeah, inside. So left side downward droop, right side you got that smirk. So there's like a weird angle. So he's projecting as being very optimistic and positive. But if you look at it on the whole left side, the eye and the mouth, there's a deep, deep, deep sadness there. And so he's very sad, detached, almost childlike, I would say, childish in a certain way, very moody. And so the ideal in face reading is a sort of integration. This is something I advise clients on a lot and how to do this, where you want to have a symmetrical face, ideally. In certain cases, there can be like a mild asymmetry, like works like, with me, I have to judge quickly. So I need, that judgmental right eyebrow. But in my personal life, it can be a bit more cautious and contemplative. That works for me. But if you have a really strong asymmetry, especially two totally different face shapes, you've got to bring those together. Because I think with him, the problem was that he had this sort of false persona going. And he kept it going for a while because look at his upper lip. Really strong Cupid's bow there, really strong heart shape. That's a Venus upper lip. So his communication style, warm, smooth talking, silver tongue, seductive. He's really capable of getting people on his side. But I mean, look, you get that strong, almost overcompensating Martian persona, but underneath you get this very weak, insecure, moody lunar side. It's
child, like a man child. Yeah.
Yes, man child is a good way to get it across. There's a lot of maturing that needs to be done. And this, the sad thing is you look at the forehead, you see those creases. So he's put in intellectual effort over the years. He was a pastor of the church for about 20 years. He was doing these Bible lectures and sermons and stuff. I'm sure he was reading his Bible and stuff, but all that couldn't help the fact that he had these unresolved issues that it seemed like he refused to confront, and it ended up ruining his church.
Wow. It's interesting for me because the first thing I saw was the mouth that is like so diagonal across his face. And it's absolutely amazing to see the asymmetry. I don't think I've seen it as obviously in any other face as what I'm seeing in this one. Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Yeah. And it's hard for me to see why I'm feeling what I'm feeling. I mean, I read the energy, and I'm trying to see from the actual face structure, as you're saying, but I'm not, my eyes not trained for that. But I definitely, everything you're saying for me is this is a man child. He's highly sensitive, highly stressed, always anxious about something.
Mm.
Can scream and shout and really throw a tantrum. It's like I hear this high pitched shouting coming out of him when he gets out of control.
Yeah.
Um,
That's the toddler energy, the short nose.
yes,
There's children actually, a friend of mine just had a newborn baby, and children come into this world almost all having a moon face and a short nose. So,
yeah,
they're very moody and impatient, and they just want to act and do and don't want to sit and think. Um, I would say what I think you're picking up with the sensitivity, if you look at his face and sort of think back to what we saw in Elon, um, Elon had a much smaller interface. This guy has a bigger interface. So you see the facial features
yes,
fill up much more of the space of the face. So that's going to stand for a bit more sensitivity there. He doesn't have that full detachment and aloofness that someone like Elon would have, which
yes,
comes with its own disadvantages. Generally, there's not a case where you say, well, these features are good, these features are bad, this way is good, this way is bad. Um, it's just sort of the way it is, and you can use it better or worse. Chantel, I think you have a larger interface, and you demonstrate the good side of that, which is receptivity, openness, sensitivity, like you say, to the energies. I think you would be a great
right,
case study in the positive side of that, and you see that a lot with I watch these more new age spiritual kind of channels, and you see a lot of recurring faces. I tell my followers, I say, look at these channels, because you'll see a lot of the same sort of face shapes and facial features of the more spiritual people.
wow, that really is amazing. Wow, that's incredible. Sure. Okay, should we move on to DJT?
Let's do it. Yeah. On a similar note, so Trump, I picked these. Um, let's go to the other picture I've got of him. Actually, let's do that because they're pretty similar, but that one's a little, yeah. So a little lower quality, but it's more straightforward. This is his official presidential portrait. So Donald Trump, quite similar to Elon Musk, choleric with a Mars face. Um, Again, somewhat similar to me as well, actually. Which I'm experiencing both the goods and bads of that. I have this little business going, but I'm also having to deal with being a workaholic, falling into being a workaholic, and being a little aggressive, belligerent at times. Having to sort of tame those passions, and that's something that Donald Trump has had to deal with a lot. I see a lot of my grandfather Mark in him. Actually, they're both quite in Myers-Briggs, they say ENTJ, the extroverted thinking, very efficiency minded type. That's, you see the choleric Mars, especially with that long nose. So you see, kind of in contrast to Elon Musk, while they do have some similar features in terms of smaller eyes, cynical, distrusting, choleric energy, very long-term, work-oriented. Mars face, very combative, hostile. Generous with those they love, hostile against those they do not. You see the nose is longer, so more thoughtful, contemplative. Eyes are very deep set, so he is actually quite calculating. Everyone says Donald Trump speaks off the cuff. He just blurts out the craziest things. But you see that those deep set eyes, small mouth, meaning he's naturally quiet and reserved. I think he's more of an introvert than people would let on. People would think, and very thin lips. That shows a hesitancy with what he's going to say. A lot of these guys, you can see quite thin lips, which stands for being very calculating with what you say. And he's especially has a very thin lower lip, which shows that he's actually kind of out of touch with his own wants and desires, his own inner world. It's difficult for him to ascertain how he feels about something and I actually have friends who have they're interest lobbyists, or they work for certain advocacy groups, and they've haven't met with Trump, but they've been in the White House, and the general impression is that Donald Trump's belief on a certain topic are those of the last person he talked to. That someone goes in the room, talks to Donald Trump, he will believe what they told him until the next person walks in and tells him something different. And he's like, "Oh, really?" And so I think that has to do with his thinner lower lip, being kind of out of touch with himself, very other dependent. And that's where I think it ties in with his introverted features. You see all these features and you see, well, this doesn't really fit with the image of Trump that we see. Well, I think a lot of that is persona. Now, with this picture and the last one we showed, and I've done this with a lot of his pictures going back to 2015, 2016, you can see the same asymmetry. The right side, he always turns his right side of the face towards the camera a little more. That's a subtle psychological tell. That means that he is basically telling people, stay out of my private life, focus on the public persona I'm putting towards you.
Right.
You see this with women sometimes. With women, they'll put the hair. If you see the hair kind of going over the left eye, that's sort of symbolically hiding or shying away. But with Donald Trump, you'll notice his right side, and this comes out much better on the composites. You can see his, but you can just tell it kind of here. The mouth is a little wider, face is a little broader, squarer, and the eyebrow is very low. The eye is very narrow and harsh. I mean, it looks almost animalistic, almost predatory. And that is the very aggressive, hostile, attacking, insulting, hyper Martian persona that he's created. But then look at his left side. You notice that the eye is more open. And there's, I chose this picture in specific because this really struck me when I first saw this released. People sent it to me and I was astounded. The mouth is smaller. He's more quiet and reserved by nature. But look at the eye. There's a look of fear there, I think. Fear, stress. I really see a scared old man. And actually, if you kind of use your hand or just kind of focus in just on the left side, it doesn't look that different from Joe Biden, actually. The right side, that's Trump that everyone knows, but the left side, there's a Biden-esque energy there where you really look at that and you're like, oh my gosh, he's got the bronzer and stuff. The skin tone's a little different, but there's something where he's scared. And when I first saw this, I've done some more adjustments on this. I've got a video on Donald Trump that should be coming out this Saturday. So this is sort of a sneak preview. But I thought that this was something that was recent, right? Because they indicted him in 2023. He was going to go to jail. There was all this stuff, he got shot at. But then I went back to 2016 and looked at his pictures from there, and it's the same asymmetry. So he still had this very tired, stressed, scared persona back then, internal self back then, contrasting with this strong outer persona. So with Donald Trump, I think there's a lot of calculation with this presentation. With Elon, he's got a very symmetrical face by and large. I think he's an open book. Like, he seems to be a guy who genuinely does kind of speak off the cuff, speak his mind. With Donald Trump, I think there's a lot of calculation going on here. I mean, you got to think he's a Gemini. He's a master of communication. He's a media man. People who know, the inside baseball and politics, they'll talk about how Trump does things in terms of media coverage, media reception. It's all because that's how he made his career. He's not a great inventor or a financier or something, but he's a master of branding, of putting his name on stuff, of using TV appearances. Back in the 80s and 90s, that's what he was known for. The Apprentice, all this stuff. And that's how he got elected, was he was able to masterfully manipulate and subvert the mainstream media using all these different techniques to get into power. But it's all very calculated. It's all, and I think it wears him out. Honestly, I think is what we're seeing is that I think he is naturally more introverted, but I think he is so driven towards his end that he's kind of forced himself to use this media strategy, this persona. You can see his canthal tilt, super positive, very much has those cat eyes going. So
Oh, yeah.
extremely assertive, rebellious, confident, very self-interested. He will almost
Yeah.
always put his own interest over those of others. And so really the only way to get to him is you convince him that something is in his own interests. And people talk up, and we're going to get into the Epstein stuff after this, but people talk about potential blackmail. Is he in the files? Is he covering up for someone else, hiding their secrets so that they don't take him out? Or there's all sorts of theories with it, but there's very much this subterfuge that's going on that people are trying to figure out. And I think a lot of that is very even if it's not necessarily the right move, I think he tries to be very calculating with what he says. And I think he pretty much only says stuff that he thinks will be a win, even if it's just like with his base of voters. I think when he comes out and he says these wild things, I think it's a calculated move to get attention from the media.
He's very strategic. I mean, if you look at Trump long before he was president, and of course, yeah, I heard about him. I don't even remember when, but I think it was definitely he was married to Ivana. I remember him going through his divorce. I remember him in that TV series where he was firing people. What was it called? You just mentioned it now.
The Apprentice.
The Apprentice. That's kind of when I got to see how he operated. Look, I mean, and guys, I'm not throwing shade. In my opinion, anyone in that position and who has done what he, he's a narcissist. So, these businessmen that have gotten into these positions and have had to fight every step of the way to get into power. I mean, you're dealing with crocodiles and alligators, and we can't deny, in my opinion, that I think is what you're talking about when you say it puts his interest at heart. Would that be kind of like a narcissistic quality?
Yeah. I think you see the very sharply positive canthal tilt in a lot of narcissists. And, even with the asymmetry, you'll notice that, I've heard somewhere, and I don't know the exact science or data on this as of yet, but a lot of people say that narcissists actually inside, they have a very low sense of self. It comes from insecurity.
Yeah.
It comes from this idea, I'm not enough. So when you see this asymmetry of the inner self is very scared and frightened and stressed, but the outer self is this like hard persona. You see there's very much this hard, the public presentation is hostile, it's combative, it's almost like a porcupine sort of effect where he's sort of lashing out at people to try and protect his own internal ego. I see the opposite in a lot of my clients, actually the opposite sort of asymmetry, where their left side will be a bit more confident, driven, assertive in its appearance, but the right side, they'll be much more kind, soft, people-pleasing. So I think most people tend to be kind of the opposite of this, where they're maybe more assertive in private, but in public they're a little more conciliatory, a little more giving. But Trump is the complete reverse of that. He's, like I said, I think scared, stressed, tired in private, but then he has this just unrelenting persona that this wall that I don't think he will ever really let down.
Yeah, and he won't stop either. I think he's. I mean, for those of us who believe in past lives, I would imagine that this man was probably fighting wars for many centuries on the back of his horse.
Yeah.
That kind of vibe, I get that with him. So whether you like him or whether you don't, I mean, I don't comment on these things because I think that everyone is just doing their own thing and following their path in this world. But I do think he's harsh. I would not like to be working anywhere near him or for him, because I do believe that he does put his own interest at heart and he doesn't let anything stop him. There's not much that's going to stop him from getting what he wants. That's what I see with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. definitely Martian energy.
Mm-hmm.
Martian, that whole Mars energy, which is of course the warrior of the gods, Mars, warrior of the
Mm-hmm.
gods. So yeah, you can see he's got that going.
Yeah.
But determined, wow, super
Yeah.
determined,
Mm-hmm.
very determined.
Intense. Super intense.
Yeah. But I've got to say, what I see, the small mouth and the sort of the short chin, that to me is telling me, and correct me if I'm wrong, um, there's a level of cruelty that he's capable of, like absolute unfeelingness. I don't know. Does that say anything to you, what I'm picking up there? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he can be violent with his words and actually make decisions that maybe he doesn't talk about again or is not proud of. I don't know. I'm just looking at that mouth and chin
I
because it
think,
seems to be
yeah.
drawing in.
Well, with the creases, you see those nasolabial folds, those laugh lines. That shows
Mm,
command ability. It's a very good thing to have
mm,
generally. Management ability. Yeah, the small mouth with the thin lips. I mean, it's very reserved. I think this is someone where everyone, a lot of people, people who kind of know a little bit more about what's going on the inside, and people who don't just take his persona at face value, which I think a lot of the left in America does. They're just like, he's just a loud, blowhard, whatever, but I think that's what he wants you to think he is. I think this is a man where it's extraordinarily difficult to get to the real man, to get to like how he
mm,
actually thinks or feels. And so you can get cruelty when you get that level of detachment, both from others and from the self. There's no emotional openness. You combine that with the Mars face shape, positive canthal toe. I think that's kind of what you're getting is detachment plus intensity plus combativeness. It can be a recipe for, even if you don't necessarily want to say cruelty, callousness for sure.
yeah, that's right. Actually, I would then cruelty. I guess implies torturing someone in war or something. No, that's not what I mean. Yeah, but cruel with his words. He can
Mm,
say things that really, really hurt someone. He knows how to use his mouth. It's like his mouth is his weapon. That
yes.
for me is something that I see with him. And as I said, that I kind of felt an opening. So
Yeah.
yeah, that for me is definitely what I feel with him. That his mouth has gotten him places because I think as well he's very strategic. Everything for him is transactional. That's
Hmm.
what I'm seeing here. There has to
Yeah.
be a transaction in everything. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I
Hmm.
am saying that would then uh, lend to why he can be so cruel and cold with his words and not have that softness or that connection within himself. Because when you, I guess, dealing on those levels, a lot of males especially have had to disconnect from their emotional selves, and especially over eons and eons and eons, right? War and war and war, and really just so they become these war machines. They become unfeeling. They become like violent in their ways and thoughts and actions.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
And I
think
think,
that,
yeah, the last thing with him, and I'm looking more at that, at kind of what you're seeing. I think something you'll see with him in a lot of his pictures, he holds his mouth very consciously. Like you can see it. I couldn't tell you exactly what it is, but you can see it very subtly. You can tell that like the muscles around his mouth are always tense. People caricature this. They parody this with the little like Trump lips or whatever. But you can see in this versus like the previous picture we saw in like Elon Musk or Mark Driscoll, there's more of a looser, laxer sort of mouth. It's very, his mouth is very
mm,
very squeezed tight almost, where you can tell he's like
mm,
very consciously controlling it. So, but
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
I think
Wow,
on to
interesting. On
maybe
to
our
the
last one. I don't
next.
know, Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, we've got Jeffrey and Ghislaine.
Yeah.
So
So
there's Monsieur Jeffrey Epstein. Let's look at that handsome boy.
Yeah. All right. So
Mhm.
now this was something I think I might have mentioned on the last one. So his face shape, long, narrow trapezoid. That's the Uranus face shape, which is actually in part shared by our lovely host here. Now you think, what in the world? How in the world could they have anything in common? They're opposite people. Well, the Uranus face shape, I call it the philosopher archetype, the radical, eccentric philosopher archetype. So these people are ahead of their time, very eccentric. Uranus rules Aquarius, and this is
Yeah.
Aquarius rising. And Jeffrey Epstein was also in Aquarius. He's born on the first day of Aquarius, and
Wow.
you see that Aquarian oddness, eccentricity, weirdness with him, but also being a middleman, being a cupbearer, being a one who goes between, while also having, my friend Chris Gabriel of Meme Analysis. He's a marvelous astrologer, great tarot reader, incredible occultist, esotericist. He talks about how you ever have a cup with a saucer. So the saucer is the cup bearer. It's what the cup rests on. And what do we say that aliens fly around and they come down in flying saucers? So the flying saucer, aliens, UFOs, it's all Aquarian. The
Right.
He told me on a phone call once the origin story of Aquarius. It's the only constellation that the Greeks believed was a person, and it was actually his name was Ganymede, and he was a beautiful young man that Zeus was so in love with, Jupiter was so in love with, that he sent an eagle down to snatch him up and bring him up to be his cupbearer. And that's where Aquarius comes from. So you have the alien abduction myth within the story of Aquarius. So Aquarius is very much connected with everything extraterrestrial, interstellar. And you see this with Jeffrey
Yeah.
Epstein. He had a fixation on science fiction, and all that ties in with that Uranus face shape. Another historical example of a Uranus face shape would be someone like Andrew Jackson, which we think of him as maybe kind of stodgy and bigoted, but for his time, he was very radical. He was despised by the political establishment because he was very much a populist for sort of the hillbillies and the rednecks out in the mountains of America. But anyways, to Epstein's face on the whole, so Uranus face shape, so he's very diligent, meticulous, detail focused on work. Strong sex drive too. That's a common Uranus thing for Uranus men, especially if they have that very strong square chin. That's going to show very intense energy. And you can see actually here with the facial thirds, you see the area under the nose, and especially kind of under the mouth, that whole bottom third, that is the material third. And you see for him, it's enormous. It's disproportionately large. And that shows interest in material pursuits, hedonism, money, what have you. You notice also his mouth. That's very important for someone like this. Stands for communication, very wide, kind of like Elon Musk. So strong appetites, wants to meet people, get to know people. And you see actually rather full upper lip, interestingly. So he was pretty open with a lot of this stuff. And we've seen in these files, I mean, there's some stuff that seems like coded language, but a lot of it is just right there on his email account, like very openly, like, hey, I've got the girls, and we've got we're going to do the sacrifice or whatever. Like, very just kind of talking openly about this sort of stuff. And the ear, you can see it bulges in that middle third. That shows a social interest. So he's very much, when I look at him, the main energy is, of course, very strong Uranus face shape, very eccentric, odd, out there, strong libido, strong drive, workaholic, eccentric, bizarre, radical, out there kind of ideas. And, this is why he surrounded himself with scientists, because he sort of thought of himself as a sort of scientist, even though it doesn't seem like he was actually that intelligent. He wanted to be a radical scientist and an innovator and do these bizarre human experiments and stuff. Sort of a mad scientist archetype almost with him.
That's exactly it, what I was thinking. That whole
Yeah.
Aquarian sort of Back to the Future, if you think about that movie, that's such a typically Aquarian mad scientist kind of archetype, right? But with him, but then if you also look at the dark side of Aquarius, right,
Mm-hmm.
it is all about viruses and technology gone wrong or complete emotionlessness. Because Aquarius, as an air sign, although Aquarius is the water bearer, which is the bearer of knowledge, often people think it's an air sign, a water sign, but it's not, it's an air sign.
Mm-hmm.
And it does not like emotion, but it can emulate emotion like a psychopath emulates someone else's behavior. The
Yep.
Aquarian, because it has the water, the bearer of knowledge, it's very easy. We'll often find, and I'm sure if we had to do some research, Taylor, probably find a lot of the psychopath, whether it's men or women, but I would probably go more male because male tends to disconnect more from his emotion than what women does. And yes, I agree, by the way, what someone was saying earlier. Yes, narcissists or whatever feel a lot of pain. Of course they do, but they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to process it. That's the problem. And then it becomes this inverted toxic stuff. I agree with you. But when often with the male who don't know how to process emotion in the Aquarius, they then move into the negative side, which is, yes, it's mental intelligence. So you're all up in your head. You can concoct these incredible ideas. And especially if you are smart, because this guy is super smart. I mean, he's like if you just look at his energy, he's like a motherboard. He really is.
Mm-hmm.
He's like a motherboard. He's got so much. I often wonder how he got time to get up to all the shenanigans that he did, right? But I also believe, obviously, there was a lot of people around him. He had a lot of aides and things, but I mean, he got up to
Yeah.
a lot of shenanigans. And, of course, the negative side of the Aquarius is that unemotional. And when you have that sexual drive, there's no compassion, there's no empathy. Then it becomes what it has become, the raping, the completely unfeeling experience just because you can and you want to, and your mind goes crazy just to see how far you can push things. That
Yeah.
is so typically the dark professor of the Aquarius. Wow.
Yeah. And he very much fits with all that. There are a few things that there's a few tells here. So we kind of have all that. You can see again the forehead creases, the strong lines there. So lots of intellectual effort put in over life, a lot of deep thinking, a lot of frustration. But there's a few things here that are kind of tells that. So we have that. We have he's this radical, this eccentric, probably a hedonist. Very strong lower third, interested in material things. Very much a socialite, wants to meet people, man of appetite. But there's a few tells here that he's not acting alone. They say because if he was, as one of the narratives is that, well, there's no network, there's no blackmail operation, there's no trafficking. He was just a solo pervert, and that was it. He's not an agent of anyone. He wasn't working for intelligence. If that were the case, I would expect him to have more of these widespread independent ears. I mean, if he's going to pull that off solo, that's what I would expect.
Right.
But you see closer set ears. That suggests to me that he was, those people are more dependent conformists. They're more able and apt to rely on their network of relationships and contacts. And that's very much the case for him, I think. You also see curved eyebrows, makes decisions based on, and maybe this, maybe that's just this picture, but that would suggest that he makes pictures based on consensus, on the feelings of people around him. So he's very, combine that with that social third of the ear, the wide mouth, very socially oriented person, very much just wanting to be in the group. And I think this may have played into why he was meeting all these famous people, constantly getting his picture taken with him, because he wanted to sort of be at the social center of all that and sort of put himself in as this mastermind between everyone. but not in a solo, you mentioned Back to the Future, not really in a Doc Brown sense where he's like off in his lab by himself working as an experience. He wanted to
Right.
specifically be seen and almost worshipped by all the most famous people. The last thing
Yes.
is you see that vertical crease in between the eyebrows. Very strong there. That's one of his most distinct features. That is when you see those, a vertical line in between the eyebrows, that's generally a worry line of worry or frustration. Some sort of big worry or frustration throughout the life has come in there. And you see it looks more centered in this picture, but on some other ones you can see it's on his right side. It's by his right eyebrow. So right side, that's the professional side. So this means it's very long line. So it's a long-term worry in his public professional life, worry or frustration. I take this to be that his job was basically as a sex trafficker, spy, blackmailer. And I would suspect, and I want to do an analysis on this, get deeper on this in a video. I want to look at the physiognomy of spies, because I suspect that you'll see this line on a lot of spies, a lot of people with high stakes jobs, spies, drug dealers, double agents, whatever. People who are kind of always having to worry about their work life. Normally I see it more on the left side, which that will indicate oftentimes a divorce or some sort of personal problem. But yeah, that's the overall picture for Jeffrey Epstein, for sure. Very much Uranian. I use him as my go-to example of the Uranus face shape.
Yeah.
Because I
And
think he's a
the
kind of a good extreme
crazy,
example. Yeah.
yeah, that crazy professor, not absent-minded, but that crazy professor that has no emotion, that has no conscience, that just drives and drives because he can, and he just wants to see how far it can go. I can imagine, when he must have quite a hysterical laughter when he gets to a certain point of seeing the most depraved things. You know what I'm saying? I can just imagine him like bursting out into hysterical, insane laughter when things are seriously depraved.
Yeah, with that big wide mouth. He
Yeah.
and I mentioned this in a video I just put up, actually. It's on animal personalities, like spirit animals and stuff, and how people kind of look like the animal they act like. And I put him on there with the hyena, which I also connect with in fiction with the Joker. The narrow face, the big mouth, the big evil
Yeah.
laugh, very hyenan.
Totally. And it's funny you should mention that, because I didn't want to say, but that's exactly how I heard him laugh. When I said that high-pitched laugh, I thought, I don't want to say hyena, that's really rude.
But yeah.
But you know what I mean, right?
Yeah,
Wow.
no. But yeah, I think that's a very strong case. Yeah, very much hyena. All right, and I guess to finish up with Ghislaine.
Yeah, Ghislaine. Let's do the last one. Okay, madam, that's supposedly in jail, but I doubt that she is. When we're seeing the pictures of the lady that's in jail now, it's very different. I don't know if you've seen that, by the way.
Yeah. So the overall impression from the face shape, and you can tell this more in mugshots, it's kind of a combination of, you have some lozenge or heart-shaped elements there. It's Venusian. But you also see some pointedness, some triangularity. That's mercurial. So it's Venus and Mercury going on with her. That's a pretty common combination archetype. I call it the communicator. These people are great at talking, seducing, convincing, and you see that was her role, was getting the girls in. That was her role in the operation. I very much see with her kind of a contrast with Jeffrey Epstein. She has a much bigger interface, more sensitive. Jeffrey Epstein had a smaller interface, more detached. She's much more open, receptive. You see those high set eyebrows too, so contemplative, considerate, slow to judge, very, very much discerning and calculating. There's a sharpness in the eyes as well, and those very strongly curved eyebrows, especially the left eyebrow. So her natural decision making style is consensus oriented. So I really strongly see with her, I see a very strong dynamic between her and Jeffrey Epstein, where you see with Jeffrey Epstein, very much like you said, the emotionless mastermind, the mad scientist, the intellectual, the brain. But with her, it's much more heart in like the dark side of that, right? He's the dark side of Uranus. Actually, she's the dark side of Venus, where it's Venus as seduction, convincing, sensuality. I noticed in these pictures of her, she's wearing these elaborate dresses and all this big jewelry. And, with that Venusian face in mind, Venusian kind of a melancholic energy there, need for outside validation, hypersensitivity. I think she was really in it in part for the life of luxury. She just enjoyed the nice things and the decadence and didn't particularly care that, other people were being hurt from it. I think she, yeah, you can very much see that with her kind of wider set eyes, somewhat, some more big picture focus, not super big on the details. So not to, say that she's not at fault for anything that she did, but I think for her, there was sort of this, this decision making made at some point where it's like, well, I'm going to, defer to Jeffrey Epstein, do what he says. I think she probably did love him. And I think he probably didn't love her and used that in order to, have her be, I see her very much as like his, smooth talking henchwoman. And the last thing is that her, left eye, you see the very strong droopy eyelid there, very strong contrast between the left and right eye. So that shows, again, like with Mark Driscoll, this some sort of possibly early life trauma, possibly just like a personal or family secret. And with this, I think it might have something to do, I would speculate that it has something to do with the fact that her connection to this world is a family tradition. Her father, Robert Ghislaine, I believe is his name, he was a British media man who turns out was a secret Israeli super spy the whole time. So it could be that she was maybe set up with the Epstein operation by her father, by her family. And that would be my guess as to what that, inner life. I think it's because it's it could just be that that's a shameful secret, is her kind of working with Jeffrey Epstein. But I think for her, it's a personal thing. For him, it's mostly professional. It's just his work. But for her, it's deeply personal to her. Her involvement in this world, whether it's through family or through her relationship with him. I think she very much kind of internalized it. So people are saying she replaced her father with Jeffrey Epstein. It's very possible. That could be a dynamic that I could see, but we can mostly just speculate with that.
Yeah, I would definitely, when I look at her as well, and I think it's so true what you've said, is that I think she really loved Epstein. However they kind of, to me, it was like this colliding of these two energies, and they just, so nasty. When they got together, and he definitely was able to manipulate her to do exactly that. The dark side of the Venus energy is obviously that heavy materialism and heavy need for beauty and things around you. So that heart energy with all the attachments, the lead attachments to the heart, right? So she suffered from that. I feel like occasionally she would get a glimpse of conscience. Her conscience would prick her. She wasn't she was not completely unfeeling. That's the thing. I think also that, I agree. She was not completely unfeeling, I think, when we just look at stuff, when we look at people like her, there's no doubt in my mind that she was severely abused as a child as well in the system, born into the system of these high-level families. These kids literally go through hell to become the monsters that they turn out to be when they are adults. So if I kind of like go back as far as her energy will allow me, she was actually a very sensitive little girl. And I can see that somewhere in the distance. I don't know. What's your take on that, Taylor?
Sensitive for sure. I in my analysis I show she was mostly melancholic in her temperament. So Jeffrey Epstein was mostly
Mm,
choleric, work focused, unfeeling, very typical for men of power, men in high places. She was much more melancholic. So sensitive, flighty, quick thinking,
mm,
reactive, sensitive, receptive, and yeah, I think melancholic Venus. I see this with clients a lot. People who are melancholic and have the Venus face shape, Venus archetype, they tend to be the archetypal hopeless romantics of the
mm,
physiognomy world. And I see that
mm,
with her. I think she sort of made it
mm.
so that she could very much idealize the lifestyle she was living. And I think what you're getting at. I think with Jeffrey Epstein, it's much more direct. Like he knew what he was doing, he acknowledged it, and he just didn't care. With her, I think there's probably a lot more self denial with that, where it's like, well, I'm this
Yeah.
isn't that bad, and I think you can see that in the maybe that's what's causing that drooping left eyelid, but hard to say.
I think she got wrapped up so quickly. It's almost like she was herself started off being one of the Epstein girls.
Mm,
And she kind of got wrapped up. And I'm not saying that is, okay, guys, I'm just saying this to me is what it feels like. She herself could have been one of those Epstein girls that got caught up somehow and ended up being his right and left hand girl. But also, so I wouldn't say, I mean, so she needs attention, this one. She needs also to be in the limelight. So it was fine, it makes sense that she would be aligning with Epstein because of his power, and therefore she would do what she needed to be able to align with that power from him.
I can definitely see that. All right.
She's definitely very manipulative for sure.
Mm-hmm.
She's learned how to use her manipulation skills, and he liked that about her. He really liked the fact that she could get girls for him that or get things done for him that no one else could. And he really praised her for that. That was like something he held her in high esteem for. And she loved to please him in that way. She loved to give him what he wanted. That's the sixth cycle, yeah,
Mm.
actually. Of course, she would have gotten worse than him. It's this. I'm not saying she wasn't. I'm never for one second saying she's innocent, memory. Um, she obviously had that in her because, no doubt in my mind, she was already abused as a kid, right? So she had it in her to be the abuser as well. But because she was so needy for his validation and affection, that she was prepared to go to lengths to please him.
Mm.
And the more depraved she was, the more he liked it. That's what I'm saying. It's like when people get into the sixth cycle, they do very shitty things. I don't know.
Yeah.
What's your take on that, Taylor?
Yeah, I think you see with her a lot of big conciliatory nature, very other sensitive, like I said, other directed. See the curved eyebrows. Um, I think, yeah, that's a good read. I think, and you see kind of this dynamic with a lot of these people. There's, this is one very useful aspect of physiognomy, seeing who's the leader, who's the follower, who's the originator, the schemer, and who's gotten wrapped up in this. And you can usually
Yeah.
tell by that by trying to look for sensitivity versus, this more overbearing intellectual kind of energy.
I want to say that had she been given different opportunities in life, she probably would have been really sensitive, caring, a healer probably. She has
For
that
sure.
type of energy. And that's probably why, in fact, not probably, as I sit here, that would have been why she was able to lure so many girls, because she has that nurturing ability to make them feel comfortable and make them feel like they're at home, and
Mm,
that they can feel safe with her, and she's got their best interest at heart.
yeah.
And Jeff just wants a little favor from you. Do you think you can?
Yeah. There's
Mm,
that warmth with her that he lacks. That's the
mm,
dynamic, I think.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. 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 Exactly that. It's like he had the ability to make her do things that he couldn't do,
Mm,
and that she couldn't do or wouldn't do on her own. The two of them together were really up to nonsense. It's like they really, when smoke and gas, when fire and gasoline get together.
mm.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I think that's the strong read there, and I definitely see that dynamic about them. Um,
Wow.
Crazy stuff.
Okay. Very crazy. But what a wonderful time to be alive, right?
Yeah.
To be able to hang on. Why do I have Donald back on my screen? Okay, he's
There
off
we go.
now. Wow. What a fascinating read. Thank you. What a great show. I really
Thank you.
enjoyed that. Thank you.
As did I. It was
I
very
was
fun.
looking. Yeah. Look, I mean, I'm just looking at some of the comments. Yeah, I'm sure she maybe was jealous of a woman, other woman, younger woman, right? As well, we're all human. I'm sure I've been jealous of someone else as well in my life. Doesn't mean I'm a serial killer. That's the thing. But wow, what a great topic, and what a great show. And I look forward to having you back again in
Yeah.
2 weeks' time from now. I want to just, yeah, is there anything you'd like to end with? Close off with, where can our viewers get hold of you? What, anything you're doing? Any shows you got going on at the moment?
Yeah. Well, you can always find me on YouTube. That's my main platform. Just look up Prosopa Insights on YouTube, Prosopa. That is my main avenue where I put stuff out on my main channel. You can also go to prosopainsights.com. I have some more information about all this on there, and that's where you can find links to my YouTube, my Patreon, which is my Physiognomy Academy. So that's my main tutorial course on how to do physiognomy, everything that I talk about. And there's also a Discord community for the supporters there. And it's scary. These guys are getting better at it than I am, because they're learning all my stuff and they're bringing it all together. So we're kind of elevating everyone and getting this information out there, which is kind of my goal with this whole thing. But those are the main things. Prosopainsights.com. That's also where you can, if you want like a consultation or anything, you can go there. And my main thing is, of course, the YouTube channel, Prosopa Insights on YouTube.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I love that, because I think the more people who sort of get to understand how this stuff works as well, like for those of us who watch Jessie's Bertar shows, she teaches us a lot about the buildings and where they've been built and on the ley lines and blah, blah, blah,
Mm-hmm.
all of that stuff. It's as important to learn to read the body as well, not just the emotions, not just the power that you as an individual are, but it's how we see, it's how we keep ourselves safe as well when we understand this information. It really is. It's very, very, very important that we know these things. We're remembering, we're reclaiming. That's amazing. Thank you,
Yeah.
Taylor. I really appreciate you. I
Thank
really,
you.
really do. Look forward to having you back again, and to learn some more from you. Yay! Here on
Yeah.
Aquarius Rising Africa. Okay, all you beautiful people. I shall see you back tomorrow, no, not Saturday, Sunday. Friday and Sunday, I'll see you this week. tomorrow with Leo, and then also with me. Hang out or drop in with Shanti. We're going to be looking again at the the sequel to the Cabal. We're watching that as a docu. I think we're on 5 and 6 now or something. Join us for that. Very interesting. Bring your tea, your chai, put your feet up, whatever, and hang out. And I'll see you then on the weekend too. God bless you, everybody.